National Fire Radio.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another episode of the National Fire Radio podcast. Before we get started with today's episode, I just want to take a few minutes and talk about a few different things that matter. Things like thank you. Thank you to our community if you're a longtime listener or just your first or second time here on the audio platform listening to the daily podcast. We appreciate your support, becoming part of the community, and making this job better. And so with that, if you have any thoughts, ideas, critiques, people you think should be on the show, or topics or ideas that you want to send forth, your direct line to the show is through our new email, podcast@nationalfireradio.com. Send us your thoughts, ideas, people you think would be good for the show, anything that's on your mind, send it over to podcast@nationalfireradio.com. That's your direct line right to the show. On top of that, if you feel inclined, please leave a review. Give us a 5-star review. That would be fantastic, and we greatly appreciate it. We're working hard to gain your trust and to build a community, so any support that you can give us back only betters the mission. So we appreciate that. Like, subscribe, and share this with your friends and talk about it because it makes the job better. Lastly, I need to mention, we want to talk about the National Fire Radio website, www.nationalfireradio.com. That is where you can get your merchandise that supports the show and the mission and the platform of National Fire Radio. Well, enough about all that. Let's hop into the daily episode. So thanks for tuning in. See you at the next one. Now, the daily episode. Our first sponsor of the podcast, Taylor's Tins. Taylor and his crew have been manufacturing helmet fronts, aluminum helmet fronts, since 2017. Over 200,000 plus shields have been manufactured by Taylor and his crew. Custom helmet fronts shipped within 24 to 48 hours. Whether it's one piece to a 500-piece department order, they'll get them out under 2 days. They're doing incredible work, 100% customizable product. Their product is top shelf. Not only are they doing aluminum helmet fronts, they're doing gas cards, playing cards, keychains, medical cards, and charts. Pump charts, street signs, custom signs, banquet awards, you name it, they're doing it. Go to taylorstins.com, and if you do order, use this promo code, NFR Sent Me, all one word, NFR Sent Me, and you'll get 15% off at checkout. That's because we have a strong relationship and friendship with Taylor from Taylor's Tins. They've been a longtime supporter of the National Fire Radio platform, and I appreciate their support and friendship. Without further ado, the daily episode. Hey everybody, Jeremy, National Fire Radio, back on the podcast today. Today's going to be a fun one. A gentleman I don't know much about. We crossed paths several years ago during a training evolution and conference down in Thibodaux, Louisiana. Bob Foss. Bob, thanks for joining me, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So real quick, before we hop into some storytelling and, solving all the world's problems today, a little background. 32 years in the American Fire Service, 21 years with Montgomery County, Maryland, currently serving as a captain in the Gaithersburg Station number 28. Maryland Task Force 1, hazmat officer. You are the vice president for the International of Fools, the Fraternal Order of Leatherhead Society. And you are teaching for on-scene training, which Aaron Heller and his crew and Bart Simpson, they are just friends of ours as well. And I know you're mixed up with them and you travel with them getting back from just the training weekend, I think just this past weekend, no?
Yeah, we just on my way back. I'm actually at Mom's house in Raleigh, North Carolina, but we were down in Charleston.
Wow.
So
talk to me a little bit about this weekend, because this weekend I know is important for all of you. It was in memory of a brother, right?
Yep.
And friend and comrade of yours that you guys do this annual training weekend. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so E.J. Mascaro was actually killed in tragically in an car accident on January 19th in 2017. E.J. was an Army vet. He did 2.5 tours in Iraq, was a recipient of the Purple Heart, a Bronze Star, a Presidential Citation. He was also a firefighter with Charleston Fire Department. After that accident, the local chapter of the Charleston Metro Fools put together an annual training weekend.
Nice.
So this is the 4th year for us and 3rd year for me going down. It was a real good weekend. We had it was an open enrollment, so they had 85 students from all over the place. We got guys from Jersey,
nice,
had guys from Florida, and everything else come down for the training. Actually, had a couple guys from New England come down as well.
Very cool. Well, I know through, your training group and yourself and the other guys that are affiliated with it, I know EJ was very important to all of you. And I've captured a lot of stories about him over the years, just over a couple cocktails or just in conversation with some guys and understanding his backstory. But I did not know about his service and how decorated he was. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, if you out there looking at the books and you do much reading, the book They Fought for Each Other was actually based on EJ's platoon and their service and a couple of battles that they were involved with. They're probably one of the uh, harder hit units in the Army during the Afghan-Iraqi conflict.
Oh, cool. Okay. I did not know that. I just wrote that down. So Bob, thank you. That's good. I'll certainly check that out. I appreciate that. What is getting together with guys that in memory of a friend and brother? What is a weekend like this past weekend? What does that do for you?
Uh, it gives us a chance to revitalize, right? It's good to see people again, guys we teach with from all over the country, students from all over the country come in. A lot of them didn't even know EJ, right?
Yeah.
EJ's been gone for several years now, but understand the importance that he had on that Charleston metro region, as well as the on-scene training. EJ was one of our instructors.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys will tell you stories that he had so much passion and drive for the fire service that it was contagious.
Yeah.
And everybody liked to be around him. He was the practical joker, but when it came to learning and training, he didn't joke around. He took it extremely seriously, and that's important. And you know this, you've been around it long enough that the training is really, really important, and we need to keep ourselves out ahead of the fire service of today and the fire service of tomorrow.
Oh,
Because it's ever changing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I know, from what I do know of EJ, he was like you said, the practical joker, right? But when it was business, and he dove head first all the time from what I heard. And he was always the first guy up to lend a hand or to be a part of it. For you, right, the memory of keeping our brothers alive, and, their memories alive, if you will. Super powerful. We talk a lot in the fire service about never forgetting, but putting together a conference and being dedicated to that year after year takes commitment. And I think that that's something that we need to explore further and we need to talk about. And for you, with 32 years in the fire service, I know that you've come from that older school of understanding the importance of that brotherhood and remembering our own. Talk to me a little bit about that and just, the importance of, putting on a project and a function, a training weekend that recognizes an individual and his love for the job.
Yeah, well, so Charleston Metro, again, knocked it out of the park, but it's important to remember the people who had a strong or huge influence on the fire service. It is ever changing, and we as firefighters are changing. We're moving farther away from where we work, so there's not a lot of time that we get to spend with each other outside of the walls of the firehouse. So the commitment that Charleston Metro has put forth and the number of the guys from on scene, like we talked about, Aaron Heller and Bart Simpson and guys like Chris Losi and Jenny Grima and Kyle Foley, all coming into town to remember him, because we all have EJ stories, right? And I think that's what kind of ties everybody together in this group and from this weekend is we all have that history together with EJ and knew how infectious his love for the job was on us.
That's cool.
So it's important to share that and push that forward to other people.
I love that. And so on your way home, you stop at Mom's, you're doing this podcast today with me, spend a little time there, and then you're headed back to the job, right? Headed back home and then to the firehouse. A weekend like this away with the camaraderie, the brotherhood, the sisterhood of these great people that share similar passions about the job and the storytelling of a guy that you all admired and loved. When you get back to the firehouse, are you ready to go?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I am. And we kind of get to jump right back into it on Thursday. We have hazmat training that I'll be running for the 4 stations or that'll show up to hazmat training on Thursday. So, but again, I think it's that passion that really, and compassion that I think drives a lot of us. Your officers, your good leaders, your people who show up to training like this kind of represent that, and I think that's important to know that there is more than your just 24, 48-hour shift. It's a lot of the stuff that you do on the outside that really defines you and your ability to influence the fire service.
Yeah. And so, talking about the fire service, then I want to dive a little bit into you and your background and your passions, because I know that not only do you enjoy going to fires, but you're also a technical guy. I mean, you're a member of the Maryland Task Force 1. I know you're the hazmat officer, so you're doing a lot of hazardous material response operations and guides and things like that. So break that down a little bit for me. Where did that love for the job come from? Because early on, I have to think you enjoyed the riding the back step. And then how did you find your way into the specialized services?
So before I got hired in Montgomery County, so a little backstory.
Yeah.
I started in Schooley's Mountain, New Jersey in 1991.
Yellow doors, red trucks. Am I wrong?
100% correct.
I know. Listen, man, that's one department that stands out to me because of the apparatus color, just because I'm an apparatus nerd. So go ahead, man. I had no idea. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so Pete Greasy is one of the first guys I met. Pete Greasy actually still works for Jersey City.
Okay.
And he was a friend of mine and kind of a role model or an influence on me in my days in Schooley's Mountain. There was also a gentleman by the name of Jerry Rohrback, and Jerry was a Newark fireman.
I know that name, sure.
And I kind of was wowed by that, and man, I would really like to do this. So that was 91. Then I rolled off. I went to college at Franklin Pierce College in Rindge, New Hampshire.
Okay.
They were only one of the few student-run fire departments in the country. We bought our own equipment. We bought our own gear.
Wow.
And we responded to incidents on campus. Well, Franklin Pierce College is in Rindge, and we also did some mutual aid with Rindge Fire Department, which I also became a member of, and got to meet up with some people again who were very influential to me and really gave me a lot of direction and guidance and support in the fire service. Both Bob LaPointe and Alan Bell, both have passed away over the years. Scott Ellis, Steve Robley, and two ladies that I kind of considered my mom outside of away from home.
Yeah, you're nice.
Was Dale Norbley and Deb Douglas. And they took care of me, looked out for me, and again, the college kid, you know how that works out. Just wanted to make sure I stayed on the right path, and they stayed beside me. And they're still good friends of mine that I reach out to today.
I love that. Yeah.
So,
and then, go ahead.
Sorry. So we got involved with Speedway Safety Services out of Claremont, New Hampshire. Worked with those guys. And again, I was a huge NASCAR fan. I've always been a NASCAR fan. And worked at the New Hampshire International Speedway, both when Adam Petty and Kenny Irwin were killed in the accident.
Oh, no kidding.
Up in 2000.
Wow. Okay.
And scary as it is, I was down in Daytona 500 when Dale Sr. got killed. So,
oh my gosh.
Which was crazy. Again, very influential to me in the fire service, because we're part of the crews on pit road for New Hampshire International. So again, the little technical rescue, the auto extrication component of it and stuff like that.
That's really I'm fascinated by that. So can we talk about that for a little minute?
Of course.
Like, how did you find your way just from being up there in the fire department you were in, and then you found your way to the Speedway being a race fan, and then you found your way to being able to be on what do they call the rescue crews that are there? They have a title. What are they called?
They're truck assignments basically.
Okay.
So I was actually on pit road. I didn't ride the truck on either of those incidents.
Right.
But they got response crews. If you know Andy Byron, or they call him Sippy.
Yeah.
Andy worked again. He's a New England guy, actually out of Manchester. Fire, just recently retired from there, and he did a lot with those guys, and actually did for a number of years, even just until, or if not recently, or still does currently. But awesome. Gave me a chance to meet the guys. I have a picture of me and Dale Sr. and Rusty Wallace standing together against Dale Sr.'s car.
That's cool. That's cool. I mean, that's just such a unique perspective, but then also, being called upon, like if you're being called upon in that environment, right, to go perform, I mean, the shit has hit the fan, right? Like, so you're expected to perform at a moment's notice there. That's pretty wild. I mean, you had to have had some interesting stories there along the lines too then.
Definitely, just meeting guys, the Bill Elliots that'll sit on the wall and talk to you like your best friends and friends for years, it's just a lot of them. Again, I was a huge Rusty Wallace fan, and just being able to talk to these guys and meet with guys, like the Hans device that came up after Senior died in the car accident and the accident at Daytona.
So educate me a little bit. What's the Hans device? Because I'm not a big race guy.
So basically, that's a device that they use to secure them in the seat, their head.
Oh, okay.
Component of it, where they're clipped into this device, and it just prevents that whiplash effect when that sudden impact or that sudden stop from an impact.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah,
Interesting.
the safer barriers were the cushioned barriers. Again, the walls when they hit the wall, kind of some give in that wall rather than that hard concrete or jersey barrier that they were constructed of previous.
Wow. So how long did you do that for? Because you said you were down in Florida. Were you there in that capacity in Florida, or were you down
No,
there
I
just as a race fan? Okay.
I went down as a race fan. It was one of those things that I always wanted to do is to hit the Daytona 500. But I did that a couple of years.
You guys got that secret handshake where you can get into like pit row because you know the rescue guys there. You got a secret handshake that'll get you in the door.
No, unfortunately, I'm an old guy now. So.
Don't age yourself. Come on. So that's pretty cool. I mean, that's a unique discipline for sure. I know one or two other guys that were involved in that too.
Yeah.
And I'd love to capture some more stories on that. But let's progress forward. And so that's what did a lot of your like technical rescue stuff maybe come from those days of like extrication training and things like that?
Yeah, because it's different.
Yeah.
Right? You go through the basic, and I hate to say it that way, the basic fire 1, fire 2, stuff like that. Now you get into a little bit more technical, and continuing or growing your education. Right. So,
Yeah.
so the next left is step really is that technical rescue step. So shortly after that, I got married to a college girlfriend. I got divorced, and then I moved down to Maryland. And I was becoming a live-in at one of the fire stations, Station 5 in Kensington. And I met the crew on the engine 5-1 that day. They just came back from a call, and I can remember the 3 guys that were on the engine that day. Kelvin Mumford was the driver. You had Matt Kalons as the firefighter and Alan Kaiser. And I was there. I had my bags packed or my vehicle packed and bags in a trailer. And they're like, dude, what are you doing here? I was 29 years old at the time.
Yeah.
I was going to live in a fire station. And they kind of pushed me off up the road to Station 21, where I was living. Better living conditions, older people there, that type of thing. And then they had a live-in program at the time. But I got to respond to the Pentagon on 9/11.
Wow.
On an EMS unit with Tammy Milovec and Megan Trieber was the paramedic. So we responded down there. We wound up running a bunch of calls in the area, not necessarily at the Pentagon, but
right.
Then went home that night and it came back on Engine 5-1 the following day to the Pentagon. And they just worked us in with the group to get involved with that. So again, just to think of the technical realm there. And Maryland Task Force 1, incidentally, actually responded to that, obviously, as the most local Maryland urban search and rescue team.
Yeah. So you were there in a volunteer capacity at that point, right? Or were you hired by?
Yep.
Okay.
I was a volunteer.
Right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I got hired shortly after. I was hired in February of 2002, RC 41. RC 21. My apology.
Yep.
And we were the first recruit class after September 11th.
Okay.
So got in after that, but again, just met the right people at the right time when I was there.
Did that time frame for you? I mean, I remember how impressionable it was for me, and you being able to witness and operate at the Pentagon. I mean, I had the World Trade Center, the towers were, literally in our backyard, and we were directly impacted by that too. For you, how impactful that was for you as a volunteer at the time, only to be hired just 5 months later, if you will, to go career in Montgomery County. What was that time frame like for you? Was that did the job mean more then than ever because of the patriotism, the sacrifice, the importance of the job that we do? Like was it more? I don't know. Was it more impressionable on you because of that?
Definitely. Not only the fire service, but the civilians.
Humanity.
And the recognition of the fire service and emergency responders. And I tell a story, and I tell you, it's one of those things that I'll go to my grave with. I remember going to the food store, food shopping to make dinner that night at the firehouse or shortly after. And a little kid came up and gave me a big hug and said, my mom told me to hug a fireman today or a firefighter today.
Yeah.
Right. And wow. Even for a kid, and maybe that kid didn't necessarily understand or know, the effects of that, but had a huge impact.
Yeah.
And again, I took that forward, and I make sure I make time. If we run a emergency call at work, and I have time to get out where my guys are taking care of a patient, I'm going to put the kids in the front seat of the fire engine.
Yeah. So important.
Right.
Yeah.
That is huge. And some of the areas we run into or work with are not the best of areas, but something like that little bit of time where they can look at the computers and push the horn or the siren or look at our fire gear, truly has a huge impact, I believe.
You could potentially change a kid's life by introducing them to the fire truck at a very young age, whether it's 90 seconds of your day to let a kid hop in the front seat, to pull the air horn string, to let them run around or climb up in the hose bed. What you might potentially do is set that kid on a path that he never forgets the importance of that day because he doesn't have anything else, and you might make such a difference. Bob, I can't agree with you more on that, man. I know so many stories where a brief interaction like that set the kid in motion to just be successful in life because of that one interaction.
And it's important, especially today, right? Things are hectic every day now for people, and we don't know what people are going through.
That's right.
You know, that like you said, man, I couldn't agree with you more.
And I don't even think it's, the affluence of a community, it makes things a little bit different, right, in the abilities. Yeah. But I think sharing the message of who we are and what we do, and I think the reason why I asked you about 9/11 and that time in your career and then becoming career there, because I know how impactful it was for me, and to be directly involved with September 11th right here in New Jersey, right outside of New York City, and seeing the impact and so on, and seeing humanity and the love for America and the patriotism that came out of it, all of it, right? But at the end of the day, like, we still live that every day in the firehouse, or we should be. We should be proud of the country we live in. We should be proud of the fire company we were a member of, or the department we're a member of, and we want to share that with the community, because whether it's an affluent community or the poorest community, it makes a difference. People look at firefighters differently than they look at anyone else.
Sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree, Bob. 100%.
Yeah.
So your rookie class right after 9/11, I have to think that the impact of that, just all in, right? I mean, that whole class is just all in.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I have a story of a guy from my recruit class was in his 50s. And his story was he watched a plane hit the Pentagon on 9/11 and decided that moment that he is done watching life outside the window. So he went and he got hired by Montgomery County. He made it to the last week of recruit school, and he wound up hurting his shoulder, and they were going to recycle him. And that's a lot of work. We do a 26-week training academy in Montgomery County.
Yeah.
And he couldn't commit to that. He said, hey, it's something I wanted to try. And he made it. He made it through all the hard work. But decided that being recycled or put back to the next class, RC-22, wasn't going to be the calling for him.
Yeah.
But just that alone, he physically saw that and decided at that time, you know what, it's time to make a change. And I think that changed a lot of the face of the fire service for all of us.
I think so.
Because it can happen again. And it's not if, it's when, and that vigilance of being ready and being prepared and training, which is huge, to train for that, and be ready when it does happen.
Is that what then pushed you to do more? I mean, many guys can go through their probie class and then come up through the firehouse and be happy on the back step, or they promote to an officer spot, but they don't pursue any further training. I mean, you've pursued a ridiculous amount of training outside of your probie class, because I mean, you're on the task force. I mean, that's a feat in and of itself.
Yeah. So, and that, a lot of that came, and I got a story about Tom Carr. Chief Tom Carr was my fire chief at the time. In August of 2007, I broke my back in a car accident.
Oh, wow.
I was just outside of Raleigh. I was subsequently going to visit my mom. And he called me in the hospital, Jeremy. He's like, hey, how do I get you home? I'm like, Chief, I can't drive. I got to be laying down on my back. He says, I got you. I'll take care of you, Bobby. So he wound up sending a medic unit from my station in Montgomery County with 3 people from my crew. It was Aaron Worth, Dominic DiPietro, and Aaron Baginski. They drove down, picked me up in an ambulance, and drove me home.
Wow.
Huge.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That is huge, especially on somebody young. Again, I was a couple of years into the department, only 5 years at the time.
Yeah.
But that's huge.
Wow.
And that,
they're bought into you, right? You bought into your department in the belief that they're going to take care of you when you need to be taken care of. And to have a boss like that follow through and put actions to paper and then to pavement to get you home
Yeah.
right? That speaks volumes, because I wonder how many departments today are going to go above and beyond for their people.
Right. I agree. But again, that's that huge impact on my fire service career for me.
Buy-in.
You know, and I think his actions then really have molded me into the fire officer that I think I am today. You know, and we know the quote. We've heard the quote by Theodore Roosevelt: "People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care."
Yeah.
Right. That is 100% true.
Yeah. Do you find so? What I like about this, and where I want to take this, then I want to ask you a question. If
Sure.
you're raised on the old school belief in the buy-in, right? You buy in, the department buys into you. They show you what they can do for you. You buy back in, and now you make the department better, right? So you said you like to believe that that's how you operate today as a boss. Do you find it's becoming more difficult to be more a boss of an older school generation, meaning that it doesn't always, today seems to be much more black and white. Back then was a little more gray.
Sure.
And how do you manage the gray today?
I think one of the things I do, and I'll tell you a story.
Yeah, please.
I have found, and what I do is I have a calendar. So when I got the promotion to captain, I got some personal information from the guys and gals on the shift. I got their address, I got their spouse's name, their kids' names, and their date of births and anniversary or significant dates. Jeremy, I handwrite or sign a card and mail home birthday cards, anniversary cards, stuff like that to the guys and gals and their families. Again,
wow. Yeah,
just because there's that impact, right? We spend a third of our lives together. Right?
Absolutely.
We're gonna have good times together. We're gonna have bad times together. I've got 3 people on my shift that are expecting May, June, and July. They're having kids, so it's a family, you know, and it needs to stay that way, you know, to keep that. We just had a Christmas party, obviously Christmas season, where the spouses came out. We get to spend time with the spouses of the shift mates, you know, and that's huge.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that's the buy-in that you need. I mean, because how are you going to stick your neck out for somebody else if you don't know what's on the line, right? Like,
Right.
you know, you need to know who their wife or husband is. You need to know their children. You need to know if their children have anything going on that's worthy of knowing about, meaning, you know, a medical condition or something like these are all things that require. But Bob, what it takes is the willingness to do that, but also committing yourself to doing it. Right? Like it has to be 100%. You can't do something like that half-assed. Like you have to have buy-in, right? Your chief bought into you. You bought into your chief because he sent an ambulance for you to get you home, right?
Yep.
He showed you what the department was willing to do for you because you were willing to do anything for the department. And now you're doing that for your people and doing the same buy-in. That's powerful.
Yeah. Yep. And I'll tell you, my family support is huge. My home family, right? My wife, we got married November 26th of 2005. My wife, Heather, she had 2 kids when we got together.
Yeah.
Mac and Kristen were my oldest 2. And then we had 2 together, Anna and Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
Anna, was born on the October 21st in 2006, and Bobby on Halloween of 2008. Extremely supportive, you know, as much as I get out and travel, but they understand and recognize my passion and love for the fire department.
Yeah.
You know, they love coming down the fire station. I put them up on the fire engines and the ladder truck. And Bobby actually ran his first call with me a couple months back. They came to visit the station. We ran a call, and I had my son on the fire engine with me. You know, and that's huge. You know, I look forward to the day that, because he has a desire eventually to go that way out, and I look forward to the day that we can run a call together. You know?
Yeah, and that again just goes to that conversation, whether it's your own family or a stranger, like opening the fire service up to them. But I think that, like, I often think about the exposure of our own families to the fire service and how important it is to educate our children and our spouses about what we do there and have real conversations with them about the time commitment, the passion, the love for it, but allow them to see that. Like, my kids know my buy-in. They know what it means to me, and they know that I'm a better person because of it. And if they were to pull that away from me, I wouldn't be good at home if I'm not good in my own life, right? So,
no, I agree.
Yeah.
And I had, Jeremy, I had trouble with that for a while.
A lot of us do. Absolutely.
You know?
Not talk about that, but yeah, like that is something that if you recognize that, you know, and then how did you change that though, Bob?
Well, so the big thing was I was diagnosed PTSD post 9/11.
Oh, okay.
And I met with a counselor. And I'll be honest with Jeremy, the best thing I ever could do is sat down with him, and he was a retired military, so kind of in the same ish ball of wax, right? Kind of understood each other. But the big thing that he put out to me was that I am not the lieutenant at home,
Yeah.
right? And that's huge. It's almost easier at times to run the firehouse than it is to run our house,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
two different individuals. I'm going to say two different dudes. When I go home, I'm a different person, and you have to be a different person. And that kind of woke me up and made me realize, because there were some tough times. There really was with my stepson and stepdaughter. And now that I have my grandson living at home, my youngest daughter Anna had a son, my grandson Waylon.
Yeah.
I'm seeing, Jeremy, the things that I missed.
Yeah.
Right. And dude, I love being around that little boy. He's amazing. He makes me laugh. He makes me smile. Just because he's learning and touching and growing. But I think it's important for people to understand and realize that there has to be that separation from the firehouse to the house.
Yep.
And being able to leave it. So fortunately for me, it's like an hour ride home. So you have that chance to do whatever you need to do, listen to the radio or listen to podcasts or blog talks or whatever it might be, to kind of decompress, so you're ready for the family when you take that step over the threshold into the house.
Really important. And I think so much so that we need to do like an episode just on this topic alone, for people listening, because I think that, Bob, you're 100% right. I mean, 32 years in the fire service, 21 with Montgomery County. You've had time to figure some of this out.
Yeah. Yeah.
but
to become that old guy, Jeremy, helps.
Yeah.
Right? Because then you get to step back and look at the things and learn from the hard way.
What does that feel for you? How does that feel, being the old guy? I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean that, like, you have the seniority now in place, right? And that you have at least one, if not two generations behind you now coming up through the fire service that you are responsible for making an impact on. Have you ever... Go ahead.
I think that's huge, right? Succession planning. You and I are going to go away at some point, buddy.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know.
And we're going to need to pass it on and make sure the fire service functions tomorrow. I think that's important. And I think we, as either influencers or officers or leaders within our organizations, and really any organization, are mending the minds of tomorrow, because it's different, And my oldest daughter and I've had conversations. She never wrote, a written report for high school.
Right.
And that baffled me.
Yeah.
The education system and the training system and stuff like that, it's changed so much that I'd like to say, back when we were younger, a lot of this stuff, I think, made us who we are today and where we are today. But we could still influence that. We influence that on our kids, influence that in the fire station. And you get, like I said, we talked about earlier, influencing people on the call, the emergency calls that we run, and our interaction out in public. We go to the food store, to food shop. We have a means of impacting people and affecting good change.
It's a word that just popped into my head. I'm actually writing it down. I think a lot. Like, when I get done with podcasts, today I'm doing a couple episodes, and when I get done, I kind of decompress a little bit. I write a few more notes in my notebook and so on it. And I just wrote down a word, deliberate. Like, everything you and I have talked about for the last 30 minutes now on this podcast is deliberate. Whether it's through, experiences prior that have made you who you are today, learning lessons, whether we did it wrong the first time and now we understand and have better ideas, so now we do it correctly this go around, right? Whether it's a home thing, a firehouse thing, a operational thing, right? All these different things, but we have to be deliberate in what we're doing.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to explore that. I'm sorry, I don't mean to I felt like I just side railed you, but I think that word I've never really talked about before on any of my podcasts or any of the content that I do, and deliberate matters. We have to be deliberate in our delivery, because if you're deliberate, you're consistent, right? If you put your people first, like you're talking about as a boss, and if you promote your people and you're there to build that next generation, like I asked you about, you have to do that deliberately, because you have to be sure that the message you're giving them is constant and correct, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And informed and educated.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Informed and educated. Perfect. Yes.
You
What a
know?
follow-up. Yeah.
And I think that, and then across the board, I'm back in college now. At 50 years old, I'm back in college for my master's degree in business administration.
Oh, good for you. Congratulations.
Keep on. Thank you.
You're not going to be.
To keep on learning.
You're not going to be handwriting any papers.
No, everything's on the computer. It's
Yep.
not even my textbooks, buddy. I
That's
don't even
right.
get a hard textbook.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's crazy. Right? Yeah, absolutely. That's 50 years old, back in school for your master's. Good for you. I think that education, I've never valued education more than I do today. I think I took my education for granted growing up. I have a 4-year degree. I have a bachelor's degree. And I took it for granted every step of the way. And if my life ever allowed me to go back, I know that I would be like a straight A student instead of a 2.2 major. And I think I would do very well because I've put value on education more than I ever have today. That's great, Bob.
And I could vouch for that right now.
Yeah.
I'm no different than that. I'm running a 4.0 after my fourth class. And I didn't do that in high school, buddy. I didn't
I was the same way.
College.
I was the same way.
Time through, right?
Yeah.
There were way more important things in high school and college than high school and college at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But now that you're right, and again, it's a deliberate act, right? It's planning for tomorrow, whether it be for the fire service for me or options outside of the fire service, and we have to be prepared, right?
That's a great conversation too, right? Because part of mentoring our next guys coming up below us, right? The generation after them. Part of mentoring that is educating them that there's life outside of this too, and that they need to be prepared for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
we don't necessarily control our destiny, buddy. We don't know, and you have to have options. You have to have contingencies, and that's important.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, honestly, I think came from my grandfather. My grandfather, passed away on October 29th of 2010. And he was a fireman in a plant back in that he worked for back in the days, Hyatt, I believe, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
And I actually wear his patch on my denim coat today.
Oh, that's cool.
That's how much, but he was in the military. He was World War II. He actually flew in the spy planes, the one with the big antenna on the roof, the spinning prop on there.
Yeah,
and
right.
He was my hugest fan growing up. He would hit me up and, Smoke, what do you got? What'd you run today? And so I can't not say that he's not looking down and he's excited and proud. That. So I'm happy that I did him well. So
yeah. What's the name Smoke, by the way? What was that?
I don't know. That's just something he came up with. And
for you,
kind of stuck around and.
Do you use it elsewhere, or was that just something he called you?
That was just something Grandpa called
me. I love
me. So
that,
that was
man.
kind of a him and I thing. And
yeah, that's cool.
But he loved the stories. Hey, what did you guys run today? How was the shift? What did you guys do? And so it was kind of cool to have that. And he just ate it up.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
That's good, man. Well, listen, a solid foundation lets you grow your wings when you mature and when we get older, right? And I'm a firm believer that the foundation in which we leave, people can build upon it, but it has to be solid. Because if it's not a solid, if your kids or your probies don't come from a solid foundation, they're building on shaky ground, and that thing's going to crumble. And it's only a matter of time. I believe
and I think a lot of this stuff, Jeremy, a lot of this stuff, I think, is what led me to the Fools.
Yeah,
right?
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Because of that whole brotherhood, sisterhood, honor, tradition, duty, service, pride, accountability, all that stuff that we like to talk about. The Fools lives that, and promotes that. And that's the ethos behind the organization. And that's huge. Again, that's the old guy fire service. I think that's before you and me, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's important to maintain that.
So talk to me a little bit about the Fools then. That's what attracted you there, right? Is the belief that you found an organization that fairly and accurately represents what you're feeling, right? I mean, is that what all those words that you listed, where do those words come from? Educate me a little bit.
Well, so some of those are the like I said, the beliefs are behind the Fools. Right. And you hear a lot of the acronyms, FTM, PDB, For the Men, Protect the Brothers, Keep the Faith, Do the Right Thing, Everybody Goes Home. A lot of that stuff is stuff that the fire service, I call them the foundation of the fire service, right? That's what the fire service was built upon. And unfortunately, over the years, some of that stuff not necessarily what some believe, you know. So I think the Fools gives the ability of like-minded men and women from all over the country, all over the world, a matter of fact, to get together and share that passion and drive of the fire service, the love of the fire service.
So I
Um,
remember. Do you know when the Fools were founded? Do you remember like the year by any chance? Just I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm just curious.
no, 19, and I might be off a little bit,
Mhm.
86-ish.
Okay, so was that
Um,
that was that long ago? Okay. So my question then is like I remember as a younger kid in the fire service, the Fools like popped up in our area, right in New Jersey, and it was like the New Jersey Fools and all this. Now I think there's two chapters in New Jersey, the New Jersey Fools and then the Garden
what?
State, I think.
Yeah,
Or there might
they
be
actually
more.
you
There's
also
there's
have
a couple
what
more.
exit.
That
What
the what
exit
exit?
Fools?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yep.
What exit? And so on. So there's a couple different groups here. I'm curious though, like not all, I feel like it goes in waves, right? Like you get the popularity of it spikes, then it seems like it kind of just wanes out a little bit, it gets a little flat, and then the popularity spikes again. What are you seeing? Like, because you got so involved that not only were you involved on a local level, but you're now the vice president of the international, which means you're the vice president of the Fraternal Order of Leatherheads across the country, correct?
Yeah. Yep. So real quick, just I wanted to fix myself, and the guys are going to beat me up on this. It was 1995.
Well, that's why I didn't want to put you on the spot because I didn't know if you knew. So,
Yeah.
Guys, don't bust Bob's chops too much. That's my fault.
Yeah.
I didn't prep him on that one. So,
And that's all good, and I should know that one. But again, there's so much other stuff going on.
95.
But,
that makes
so-
sense because that's when I came into the fire service, and
Yep.
shortly after, it was like the hottest thing, man.
yeah. So when I started, I got into Central Maryland Fools. Jay Blake was the president of the chapter. I'm getting ready to join. He's like, Bob, I hate to tell you this, I'm stepping away. So I kind of took over Central Maryland Fools at that time and try to build it up in our area. And
Yeah.
the hard thing about Central Maryland was Fools chapter was it covered so much area,
Okay.
right? I think the best advice I could do for anybody who's looking at chapters or starting a chapter is keep it consolidated to an area, a smaller area.
Yeah.
Where it's functional and feasible for people to get together. Again, from 1995 or sorry, when I started in the mid 2000s, obviously technology's changed. How many we can do Zoom meetings now, but I'm one of those guys. I like to sit down with the guys and gals.
I get it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And physically that FaceTime and that being close to with one another and kind of sharing that. So having a big chapter like we did, we really struggled with that a lot because it was such a big area that we covered. But the organization and it promotes that everything that again you and I've talked about all along today is all the important aspects of the fire service and why we're doing what we're doing and remembering those who guys and gals who kind of laid the path of the fire service for us today,
Yes.
good and bad, right? And I think that's important and understanding the cool thing is just like this past weekend again Fools chapters, Charleston Metro, but there were a bunch of different guys representing different chapters from across the country there
Yeah.
instructing. And so again, it's that joint experience and knowledge that we kind of like to be around each other and B share with other people.
Yeah.
FDIC is a great opportunity to get together. Firehouse Expo is a great opportunity to get together. Again, like-minded people.
Yeah, and I think it should be said too, because I get this very often. We talk about this a lot, that if you're in a department or company that doesn't represent who you think you are and you're looking for more, you have outs. You have a way now more than ever, especially with social media and online presence. You can find organizations and individuals that represent who you are. And I think the Fools is one of those organizations that promotes the betterment of the job across the board. And if you're into the job and your fire company or your fire department is not, and we say to go find an organization or find people that share similar thoughts and ideas that you have or want to have, go look at the Fools. Find a chapter that's close to you, inquire, reach out, make an effort, because an organization like the Fools will put you in touch with people that absolutely unconditionally love the job.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
just this weekend alone, Jeremy, I got 2 people that approached me while we were down there about starting new chapters.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Do you hear that a lot though? Because it's a tremendous undertaking, right? So it's a tremendous undertaking to start a chapter. And what would be your advice if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to start a chapter. I'm all fired up. Let's go."
So my biggest recommendation is to go look at our articles of association.
Okay.
Right? Basically our bylaws.
Yeah.
If you would, right? And it kind of lays the groundwork of what we hang our hat on as the Fools organization, as a chapter. So we ask you, Jeremy, you're looking to start a chapter. Hey, what you need to do is you go through the articles, and what you do as a chapter is you would adopt our articles, and you can make changes to those articles as you deem fit to meet your chapter. Like, hey, you got a guy who wants to join. Okay, one of our members or our founding members here of the chapter kind of sponsors that individual. This guy has to come to a certain number of meetings or whatnot, right? Training, so forth, so on, to make sure that they're trying to join, to not to just to join, right?
Yeah, right.
The membership card isn't getting to get you a coffee at 7-Eleven, buddy, right? It's what you put into the organization that was what you're going to get out of it. And that's important. But I recommend they go through the Articles of Association, make sure they understand what we're about, what we do, what the expectations are, how to function or operate. We provide, as in the International E-Board, we provide a lot of autonomy to our membership to let them run their organization, their chapter, right? And obviously, if there's something's big, something drastic comes about, and they need assistance from the E-Board, the International E-Board, that's what we're there for. But we want them to run their thing. And we want them to do training. So we're a nonprofit 501c3 organization.
Right. And
the big sell is that we do fundraising and training kind of outside of what you guys do in the fire service, at the academy, that type of thing. A lot of our fundraising goes to organizations within the fire service, whether it be, Terry Farrell Firefighters Fund, or Joey DiBernardo group, organization, that type of stuff.
Promoting and bettering the job.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. What does it do for you personally? Like, for somebody that's listening to this and they're like, "Oh, I've heard of the Fools. I don't know. Like, I don't know if I got any extra time." What's the sales pitch from Bob Foss? Like, what about the Fools makes you fall in love with it every single time you go to an event or you talk to somebody that's affiliated with them?
It's guys and gals with the same mindset of me, right? They want to do it. They want to learn. They want to train. They want to get better. They want to share what we're about with everybody, right? That's huge because, again, it's changing. The fire service and every industry is changing. And as long as we keep those people, the backbone of the fire service there, that the people who want to get out there and make themselves better, who want to learn, we're that type A personality. Most of us are that type A personality, right? We always want to do better. And 99% of the time, we're the ones who are harder on ourselves than other people are because we want to be better, right? That's huge. And just being able to get around people who have that passion and drive and desire, it's refreshing, right? It's that breath of fresh air that, hey, these guys get it. These gals get it.
You know what else I like about it too, Bob, is I'm thinking to myself here, and I just made another note on my notepad real quick, but I'm certainly an alpha. Most of us are, right? And I'm certainly an alpha. I'm always out front, and I'm always, let's go. And I think about it, but every once in a while, I get this little devil pop up on my shoulder that says, like, "Are what you're doing, is it, are you making an impact? Does it matter? Do people really buy what you're selling?" Like, all that shit, right? And then I just wrote down, it says it reinforces our love for the job, because you can be absolutely in love with the job, and then every once in a while you get this feeling like, am I going too far with it? Am I too dialed in? Is this too aggressive? And then what organizations like the Fools does, like when you surround yourself with like-minded people, not only does it make you feel good that you're not alone, but it reinforces the fact that you're allowed to feel that way, and it's okay to be passionate about it. I love that.
And that's huge, right? Because we all go through that, and
of
I
course.
can say I've been through that. It's just wondering, like, man, am I driving these guys crazy with all this stuff? But then again, you talk to the guys. I can make a phone call to Ben Flegel, the president of the International, or Bart or Aaron, and they're like, "No, dude, you're doing the right thing. Keep that push, keep that passion. passion and compassion. Here we go again, right?
Yeah.
That's important. And there are going to be lulls in that. And it just is being able to pick yourself up from that and keep on the path because we are, right? National Fire Radio alone, buddy, the amount of people it reaches and the hopeful impact that we're making on people younger than you and me in the service,
That's
right?
it.
And our future of the fire service. And that's huge.
It's
and I think that's the biggest takeaway for me.
Yeah, it's super important, right? Like there's with all the hustle we put into this and what we're building, and then it's like every once in a while I have a down day where I'm like, man, is it worth it? Like, are we like, all this, these sleepless nights, these marathon days of doing, content and all this stuff, right? Is it making an impact? Is it making a difference, right? Does it really matter? And then I'll get a message. I'll get an email. I'll get a direct message. And then next thing you know, there's another one and another one. And it's like they always pop up right when I think you need them. And I think that's
100%.
Yeah, and that's what's cool about it, man. Like, you don't know. I think you even said, like, you don't know what your future holds. And like, but fate's funny that way. And it's like right when you need a pick-me-up, it kind of comes in some form. And I think that's what's really cool about it. But you can better your chances when you surround yourself with people that believe in the same type of things that you do. When you surround yourself with like-minded people, you give yourself a better chance of survival and happiness. Yeah. All of it.
Yeah, definitely.
I love it. Talk to me about training and how passionate you are. I mean, the Fools certainly parallel that mission. You guys promote training. You're a 501c3, a lot of charitable organizations you guys support, try to support, and so on. And you promote that through a lot of training events. And then the chapters also hold a lot of training events. A good friend of both of ours, Rusty Ricker, up in Maine, New England Fools. He's a very, very busy Fools chapter, and he's doing incredible work up there in the mission of the Fools. And that should be recognized. And a lot of it is done through training, because if we better ourselves, we better the job, right? So talk to me about training. I know you're super passionate about it. You and I met, Rob and myself were down in Louisiana training at the Bayou, right? I believe it was.
Yeah.
Or burning in the Bayou.
Burning in the Bayou.
And
it was actually a hospital.
Yeah, it was.
That Mr. Rouse owned, Rouse's Food Markets, if anybody knows, for the South. He had bought that property. And this was a 2-story hospital, buddy, that we got to do live fire training.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was great.
Chris Gordon and I, he was a North Charleston fireman. He and I were teaching that VES class, and had the ability to get Rob to come in with me. And Rob and I wound up getting bellies on the floor.
I love
it. Some fire rolling over top of us.
Yep.
And he and I kind of had a giggle after the fact, that he's like, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I think the three of us had a chance to meet and kind of get to know each other. And
we did.
But again, great training, Jeremy. It's just organizations like those guys down there at the Bayou, they love the training. They love to learn. They love to do the stuff. And one of the original Burn in the Bayou events was a school that we had the opportunity to do the same thing in. And that was one of the last big training event weekends that I got to do with EJ.
Oh, okay.
Wow. And again, another amazing training opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I think the training component of is not only for training other people, but learning myself, right? Again, that commitment for me to go back to school is there's a lot I don't know, and I think it's important for those people who have shared information and experience and knowledge with me, that it's important for me to share that with others as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And for you to recognize that, because did you always recognize that? I didn't. You know what I mean?
No, I don't think I did.
Yeah.
I think it's just some of those events that change for us in the fire service that kind of may open your eyes and make you realize that, I think we have the ability to influence and a positive influence on the future of the fire service.
Yeah.
For me, the hard thing is, and I don't know that we teach or train very well leadership.
Oh, I agree with you. Talk about that a little bit. What do you mean?
So, and I'll tell you, I took a great class, and it's called the L580 class. That's Leadership is Action. I did the staff ride. And what that was at Gettysburg Battlefield. So I got to do a 3-day training on leadership through the eyes of the Civil War Battle of Gettysburg.
Oh, that's unique. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
A huge influence on me, right? So out of that, one of the instructors made a comment about starting a leadership book club. So I did that. I went back after this class and I started a leadership book club in Montgomery County. and just going through different leadership books, but both fire service and military and the business world, there is so much leadership knowledge and experience that we could take out of all different industries
Yeah.
to make it relevant to ours. And that's important. We have a captain that's assigned to our training academy, Shelley Wheeler. She just got her doctorate in leadership. Again, and we have a battalion chief, Raphael Gibson, who's assigned to the academy, huge into the leadership component and thing as well. So I think we're making strides in that direction, the right direction, as trying to mold the leaders of tomorrow, at least within Montgomery County Fire Rescue.
Yeah.
Because again, it's important. People, there's a debate, right? Are people born leaders? Maybe. Or, I think they're more influenced through life experiences that create that leadership capability.
And we have an obligation to provide them opportunity and tools, right? Like
100%.
Born leaders or learned leaders, I don't care whichever side of the fence you're on, but even if you're a born leader, you still need the opportunity and the tools to perfect your leadership craft. And if you're not born with it, we can still give you the opportunities and tools to at least be the best potential leader you could be. And
Sure.
And so that's super important.
Yeah. And I think a good leader, Jeremy, is a teachable leader.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And
I think a big part of that, Bob, comes through maturity, though, because when I was thrusted into leadership positions at a younger age, I thought I knew it all and I had a big mouth. And I learned over time and experience humbled me to understand that I don't know it all and I need to learn more and I need to ask more questions and open up my ears and be willing to learn from others. And, in fact, I'm a much different person at 40. I'll be 46 this weekend. I'm a much different person today at 46 years old than I was at 26.
Sure. Oh,
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of life experience does that, right?
That's right.
Both inside the firehouse and outside the fire service.
100%.
Kind of creates that and drives that. And it's different, and it takes a lot of commitment. Again, it's easy to be an officer-ish. It's easy to be a boss, but it's difficult to be a leader.
Yeah.
Right. Because sometimes leadership is lonely, buddy. And
Often
and
is.
you and I could be, you and I could be best friends today, but now tomorrow I'm your officer, right? And there has to be that separation and understanding that, Jeremy, I'm not being mean to you intentionally, but I'm your officer today, and we need to work together and understand that.
We do need to do a better job, like you said, and I agree. And it's good to hear that Montgomery Fire and Rescue is doing it. And I think we need to do much more of it. There's days that guys are firemen today, and tomorrow they get promoted and they're thrusted into that front seat as a company officer all of a sudden and given zero tools or education how to hack that position versus the backstep fireman.
Right.
And I think that we don't do a good enough job in educating and promoting our own to go up the ladder. And I think that's where a lot of the disconnect and animosity can come from, is because we are letting our people down when it comes to putting them into those positions.
Sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's exciting to hear, though, that you guys recognize that and that you're influencing that through a leadership book club, which I think is great. I'm not the biggest reader in the world. I listen. I consider reading the podcasts and the books that I do on audio. It's just how I learn better. I don't have the time to sit and read. And so on. I should make more time for it. And I know everybody talks about the importance of reading and how it makes you a better leader and a better individual, more educated. I wish I had the patience to read. I just don't. But I want to tell anybody listening that even if you're not a big reader like me, there's still ways to learn through reading, and it might just be on an audio platform. So there's all those tools out there available to you now more than ever, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Audiobooks, buddy. Again, 8-hour drive from, coming down here. Audiobooks are an awesome opportunity, right?
Yeah, huge.
Same thing. You get a chance to listen to that while you're driving down the road. I don't advise you reading a book while you're driving down the road, but, or the podcast on leadership.
I agree.
And stuff like that, right? There's so much out there that really gives us an opportunity to be successful. You just got to put a little bit of effort and energy into doing it and reap the benefits from it down the road.
I couldn't agree with you more. I truly, truly believe in that wholeheartedly. And I've done more of that now than I've ever done in my life. And it came through the understanding and maturity that I had to get over life. Like, through experience makes you different. And, I'm a totally different person I was than 5 years ago, let alone 10 and 20 years ago. So for sure. So Bob, what's next for you, man? We're approaching like the hour mark on the podcast. Believe it or not, it goes that quick.
It does go quick.
Oh, it does, man. And I know we're going to talk shop. We're going to talk about technical rescues. We're going to dive all into this stuff. And instead, we hit on a lot of other things. But I will tell you, the last hour conversation has been fantastic. There's so much here. What's next for you? What's going on? What do you have cooking?
So there's some good training coming up. People interested in getting out there doing training because we've been talking about it. The LIFT conference in Louisiana.
Okay.
That's coming up in a couple months. And then right behind that, I'll be home for a couple of days and we're heading down to Joey DiBernardo down in Texas.
Yes.
So I'll be down with those guys again. So I went up to Long Island with them and had a blast and was very, very humbled to have the opportunity to be given a platform through On Scene to teach during that. Because, again, Joey was a huge proponent, advocate for educating and training and teaching in the fire service. So it's people like Joey that kind of, again, puts us on that platform. And Jeff Cool, we talked about Jeff, you and I, before we got going on this. Jeff does a lot still to this day, not only in memory of Joey, but also the fire service. And he gets out there and they promote a word about the bailout systems and training and educating in that, which is huge. On Scene, we got the go. We're going to go back for another train to trainer. We'll be up at Sterling Rope in Maine.
Oh, cool.
And their train to trainer component, because we do a bit of that stuff for them and their bailout systems. So I got a bunch of training coming up, but the good thing is, and a lot of it, honestly, is my guys and gals on the shift. I've got eight great people on the shift. I think we've built a real good shift, and I think we've become tight knit, and which is huge. And it's important. But I think it's the things that we do together and working together and the understanding, and they know where I stand and I know where they stand, that gives me the ability to say that, right? I've been off the last two shifts, and I trust my guys implicitly to know, guys and gals, I apologize, to know that they're going to do the right thing even when I'm not there. For that detailed in officer who doesn't know the area, who doesn't, so I like that, and I'm very thankful and appreciative for them and then what they bring to the firehouse every day we work together and outside. The fact that we can talk together outside, and we don't have to talk about shop outside of work, unless we choose to.
Well,
that's
listen,
huge.
When you buy into your people and you know who your people are, you have a lot more in common with them because it's more than just the job. So buy into your people, find out who they are, find out what they're into, and find commonality outside of the firehouse, and you'll go far with your crews for sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
I love that. Bob, thanks so much, man, for joining me today. This was a lot of fun because I really haven't had the opportunity to really get to know you. And I think today was a great conversation. I'm looking forward to continuing next time I see you. But I appreciate you for joining me. If people are interested in the Fools, how do they get a hold of you or the Fools to discuss that further? Because I think it's important to push forward the mission of the Fools.
Sure. So www.foolsinternational.com is our website, and then we're all on all the social media platforms. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. In all reality, if they want to hit me up, it's Robert or Vice President at foolsinternational.com.
Cool.
Hit me up, ask questions, and if I don't have an answer, I promise you I will put in the effort and energy to get you a response and an answer.
That's awesome. Well, Bob, thank you very much for your time today. It was an absolute honor to have you on and just to catch up a little bit. And truly a great episode with a lot of good nuggets in here, man. And I appreciate you spending some time with me today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on. It was a good opportunity.
Yeah, good, man. Hang right here. I'm just going to sign off, but I don't want you to hang up. So hang on right there, and then I'll get right back to you, okay?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Everyone, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio Podcast. Bob Foss, 32 years in the fire service, Montgomery County, Maryland, currently serving as a captain, brings a lot to the table. What a great conversation it was today. We'll put his links in the narrative on the podcast. We appreciate you tuning in. And do me a favor, take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse and talk about it, because when we talk about the job, we're making the job better. Email us, podcast@nationalfireradio.com. We want to hear your thoughts and ideas or critiques of our podcast. We'd love to hear what's going on, current events, and so on, and we'll bring it to the podcast. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.
National Fire Radio.